The higher buildings, 7 stories, it's described somewhere, I remember hearing, that it's for the higher classes, not for the lower class persons don't require or are not appreciative of such higher. So they stay, they're content to remain in their little domiciles, whether it's smaller. But for those who are Brahmin or Kshatriya, they're able to appreciate being at a higher level like that, and they don't become degraded. Whereas, just like the Shudras are not supposed to be paid with large sums of money because they'll simply use it for things that are not healthy for them. They'll become confused and bewildered, and they'll take intoxication and use the money for activities which are not according to Shastra. So everyone should be happy in accepting whatever is set aside for them as their quota by the Lord. And we know what is set aside for us by Shastra. Because the Shastras tell us that this is what you're supposed to get according to your past karma and according to your present situation. And if you use what you have right now for the service of the Lord, then you'll make spiritual advancement. Even if one is coming from a very poor family, it doesn't make any difference. That is not detrimental for his spiritual advancement. In fact, in some cases, it's extremely helpful. Should probably like to quote that verse. I don't know if I can remember it. I can't remember right now. But it's a verse that says, the Lord says, when I am especially fond or favorable to someone, I take a devotee who's kind of, he wants to serve Krishna, but he's also got some uncertainty about it. He's got some attachment to the material. And Krishna says, I take away all of his riches. And then he's left with no question. There's no question to whether he should use his wealth for sense gratification or for devotional service, because his wealth is taken away by Krishna. In fact, Prabhupada even said that happened to him. He should have become as wealthy as Birla. Some astrologer told him that. Birla was one of the most wealthy persons in India at that time. Still, the Birla family is very wealthy. So he said, Prabhupada, according to his karma, so-called karma, he should have been as wealthy as Birla. But Krishna took it away. The opportunities he had for making huge sums of money were spoiled. But he took it, this is Krishna's mercy. And he also saw, as others have seen, he became even more wealthy than Birla. Even though Krishna took every single penny away from him. So much so that when he went to New York on his trip the Jaladuta. He only had 43 rupees, which was about $6 at that time. So that's he's not very wealthy. But he didn't worry about the wealth. He just worried about pleasing his spiritual master and carrying out his duties. Whatever the duty is, one can become perfect, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. If one does his own duty, and he's satisfied with what is set aside as his quota, that's also stated in the Ishopanishad. One should be satisfied with whatever is set aside for him as his quota, and he should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. They belong to Krishna ultimately. So, we should practice this. The Brahmins especially have to practice this. They shouldn't be hankering for more and more wealth. Because if a Brahmin is attached to wealth, he becomes criticized and becomes contaminated. There's examples in the Shastras, I know in Garga Samhita, that the Brahmins, when they would go to big ceremonies, they would be invited all over the universe, wherever there was a great sacrifice, like Rajasuya sacrifice, to be performed by very, very wealthy kings, like Ugrasena or Yudhishthira. So they would invite the greatest Brahmins, such as Gargamuni and Vyasadeva, Narad Muni. These are the top Brahmins in the universe. And they would all come. And the king was so wealthy that he would give away charity to everyone who came, but especially to the Brahmanas. In fact, to the Brahmins, he gave everything. He would give his whole kingdom. He had so much faith in the Brahmins that he knew that if whatever I have belongs to the Brahmins. He thought, I'm a Kshatriya, but the wealth is not mine. It belongs to the Brahmanas. So he'd give everything to the Brahmanas. And the Brahmanas, like Gargamuni and those other Brahmins I mentioned, they were so renounced that they would take the wealth and go to, like Mathura, and they would give all the wealth that they just got from the king, which was all the wealth in the universe, and they would distribute it to the local Brahmanas, pure Brahmanas of Mathura or something like that. So in this way, everyone, they're all giving to those who are very qualified to receive it. The 6 qualities or 6 occupations of a Brahmana: Patana, Patana, Yajana, Yajana, Dana, Pratigraha. Means he performs sacrifices. Patana. Patana means he studies, he's very learned in the scriptures. He can't just be a Brahmana in name. He has to know the scriptures. Patana Patana. And he teaches others. He has to know how to teach. Not that he claims to have a great deal of knowledge, but he can't tell anyone what it is. Sometimes you meet people like that. They're supposed to be great scholars, and you ask them to say something, and they have nothing to say, because they didn't really realize it. So transcendental knowledge is not just to be, as Prabhupada said, not just, it's in the book. If someone asks me a question, I tell them, it's in the book. You have to know. Patana Padana Yojana means he knows how to perform sacrifices, and he does so for others. Like when these kings wanted to perform the sacrifice, it wouldn't have been successful if they didn't have real Brahmins. If you get someone who's just imitating a Brahmin, the sacrifice won't work. It's like if you go to a car mechanic, and he's not a really great car mechanic, and when there's some problems in the car, he won't be able to get it to start. He doesn't know how to do it. So the Brahmins, they had the purity. They knew how to chant the mantras. In fact, it was arranged at these sacrifices they would have some Brahmins who were even more qualified. They would act as referee in athletic events. They have referees to make sure that the technical points are all followed properly. Like both sides, if they're having some competition, to make sure that nobody got a head start on someone else. No one was using some steroids or something that they weren't supposed to use. So they have referees to make sure it was all done properly. Then you can have the Olympic Games or something. And similarly, if you have those Brahmins, then you can have a real Rajasuya, where the whole earth is under the direction of one king, one emperor. Sometimes people say that, how can you have one person ruling such a big kingdom as the world? But it's possible, because Naradeva, these kings were trained by the greatest Brahmins, and they were associating in such aristocratic families. They understood the value of doing things according to Shastra and following Dharma. Therefore, for Yudhisthira, there was no question of turning down the challenge for gambling or whatever. He never minded giving away so much wealth. We would think if we had a lot of wealth and we started giving some away, we think, wait a minute, I have to take care of myself. I have to make sure I have enough in my family. But an advanced soul, he doesn't think that he has to worry about that, whether he's a Brahmin or a Kshatriya. He knows everything will be supplied by the Lord. Whatever is required for him to do his duty. And he's always very mindful that if Krishna wants me to have this, he'll supply. And he doesn't need to do anything illegal or non-favorable. Sometimes people, householders and others, they get caught in a trap. They think that I have my family, I want to give my family a nice level of advancement, I want them to have nice facilities. So they do something that's not conducive for spiritual advancement. They engage in some kind of activity that is unhealthy. It's not according to Shastra. So they get some money, perhaps, apparently, from that. But then they become entangled, and it's hard to make spiritual advancement because they're doing things that are not healthy. Sometimes it was seen that people like that, I remember there was one instance, the man was very wealthy. His family had some grocery stores, and we know what goes on. Grocery stores, they sell all kinds of things. So he was selling things, contaminated things that were not healthy for people's bodies or minds or souls. But they asked Prabhupada what about him? Could they be engaged in devotional service? Prabhupada said yes. And if he's sincere, then in due course, not too long, he'll soon realize that the activities he's engaged in are not helping him in his spiritual life. So he gives those up and goes back and just does what his duty is, and Krishna takes care of all of his necessities. Thank you.